Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Works. I am here with Blaine. Hi, Blaine.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about what happens when you try to be very present for something. And it's really interesting because I'm a very heady person. I'm an intellect. I've kind of put a lot of stock into that. I'm a writer, I'm a thinker. It's not that the body comes secondarily, but it kind of does. Like everything is leading with the mind. That's sort of how I've led. And what's interesting about that is the mind is kind of, what do they say when you have a narrator that you don't trust, an untrustworthy narrator? There's a word for that, though, in film and television and books and stuff. When you have unreliable, there it is, an unreliable narrator that you're following through a story. And you could say that about the mind. The mind is sort of an unreliable narrator through your life. It tells you all kinds of things that may or may not be true. It takes you away from the present moment most of the time, unless you can train the mind to not do that. And so Blaine and I have been talking about that a lot as we move into the summer months when we have a little bit more time, a little more freedom. People are playing, vacationing, and all of that. And I've noticed this for myself. I'll plan a big trip. And I love planning. Again, very intellectual. I love planning. I'll sit down at the computer and look at the routes and all. I love that. I'm a big planner. And then when I get to the place where I'm at, I'm like already planning the next thing, or planning what dinner's going to be that night, or what I'm going to wear the next day, or what we're going to do the next day on this vacation. Instead of, wow, I took all of this effort to get to this place on this earth, to be here right now, and I am not here right now. I am the farthest away from here right now. And so I've really been thinking about that, and so we decided to have a conversation about that, about why we are not here now so often. And then I brought it up to Blaine. I was like, well, maybe we call this episode Be Here Now, as kind of a reference to Ram Dass, who is one of my favorite spiritual teachers. And Blaine, I'm going to punt it over to you. And what did you say when I said, let's talk about Ram Dass? And you said,
I said, well, Ram Dass wasn't the first person to say that. Neither was Eckhart Tolle with The Power of Now. It comes from the Yoga Sutras. It's thousands of years old, this concept of now. It's not a new thing that, in the last 100 years has suddenly been discovered. However, that doesn't diminish its power.
yeah. So we just started talking about that, and I said, okay, Blaine, so take us down that for a minute. The first Yoga Sutra and then the second Yoga Sutra. Can you just, for those of you that don't know, the Yoga Sutras are an ancient text basically kind of writing down the tenets of what yoga is. And interestingly enough, there's almost no asana, no physical practice in the Yoga Sutras. That is a very modern interpretation of what yoga is. And actually, the physical postures were created and developed so that you could essentially tire the body out, as well as get the body flexible enough so that you could sit still and be in the present moment, because that's really one of the goals. So let's wind back, and Blaine, give us Sutra 1 and 2.
I feel like you just said it. The whole point of everything is so we can sit still and be in the present moment, right? That's really what the 8 limbs of yoga, specifically, we can say are leading us up to. So yes, I see it through the lens of the first teacher who I learned about the sutras from, and this is really how she taught it. So the first sutra translated is yoga starts now, or yoga is now, or it's now. Like it's so the way that this teacher taught me was that it's now. Yoga doesn't start tomorrow. Yoga doesn't start next week. Yoga doesn't start a week from Tuesday. Yoga doesn't start, it starts now. Like now is now. And now your now is over. So I'm in a new now, which is over. So now I'm in a new now, right? And so it starts now. And then the next sutra is like, what is yoga? Yoga starts now. What is yoga? And it is defined in the sutras as the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. So that's the beginning of the sutras, that what we're trying to do now is stop the fluctuations of our mind.
Perfect. Yes. And the reason that we've been practicing this for 5,000 years and we still haven't gotten it is because it's really, really difficult. And we talked about this on another podcast as well. Like, the mind is made to be active. Like, that is what it's doing. It's like firing off constantly. It's constantly scanning your environment. Are you safe? Is everything okay? Where's food? Where's water? Where's safety? Where's shelter? That's just like the baseline of what your mind is doing all the time. And then you add into, that we're constantly bombarded with information from our phones, from TVs, from just all kinds of input, let alone our friends, our family, our pets, the weather. Like, everything is constantly inputting to us. And so the brain is figuring out what's important. What do I actually bring to your consciousness? What can I just put in the unconscious you don't really need to pay attention to right now? Oh, a squirrel, right? A squirrel. Like, it's that thing that's going on all the time. And so it's very difficult for us to just be present, just be right here and focused on whatever it is that you're doing. Chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you're not just sitting listening to this podcast. You might be running as you're listening, or driving. I just cooked lunch and listened to a podcast while I was making lunch. And I was making like 7 things. I wasn't just making lunch, but I was soaking the nuts for the pie that I'm going to make later. And I was making salsa for this other thing that had nothing to do with lunch. So I was doing all of these things. Where was the focus and the presence of my being? I don't feel like it was fully there on that cutting board, even though you'd think that would be a good time to focus your mind when you got a sharp object in your hand. So, Blaine, what do you think about that? What's your take on being present and why it's so difficult, and what do you do about that?
I mean, acknowledge it's so difficult. I think it's just as difficult for me as anybody else. I don't have any magic abilities beyond other people. But I'm thinking, because it's choice in some ways, right? Because you chose to listen to a podcast, maybe to, multitask, maybe, I don't know, there's information in that you really want, and you don't have time to sit and just chop carrots and then sit and just listen to a podcast, right? Like, you're optimizing. Yeah. And so, and that's what our mind is doing, right? Optimize. And we get comfortable with whatever we're doing. That's so you're obviously comfortable, Lauren, like sitting and chopping. And also, you're good at cooking. You're experienced at cooking. If it was the first time you had ever chopped carrots, you would probably be like, I can't listen to this and do this, right? Because you need to focus on chopping carrots. But because you can chop carrots like it's nothing, and you can listen to a podcast, and you can make 3 dishes at the same time, like, a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle all that at once. But that is in your habit field, right? It's in your habit field that you can easily make these dishes because you've done them a million times. You can easily take in this information. And so you made the conscious decision, I'm going to do these tasks and I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to check a whole bunch of stuff off my to-do list all at the same time. And the more that is our habit, the more we are going to do it. Because then it's going to start to feel uncomfortable the day that you say, I'm only going to make one thing for lunch right now. And I'm going to really focus on my chopping and my breath. There was a time when I was learning mantras. I was a much younger student. All of this was more new to me. And I would recite mantras as I chopped. And I'd be like, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, like, so I could like get mantras into my field with kind of like the rhythm of my chopping. And so that was two things I was doing at once. And then, then that went away. And sometimes I do often do my cooking in silence. I really like cooking but anyway, that's my habit field. And I also have some auditory stuff. And so sometimes like noise coming at me at a time that I'm trying to concentrate for me can feel really distressing. But it's not for people, I'm not lying, never have any radio on in my car. I don't listen to anything when I drive. I can be on a 5-hour road trip and I am in silence. I do not like to drive and like going on while I'm driving. It makes me kind of like stressed out. And so that's my habit. That's what my field is comfortable in. So I guess, Lauren, those are my initial thoughts. Lauren and I did not prepare for this podcast at all, except for this high level discussion that started with me talking about a paddling thing that happened a couple of days ago. And we're like, hey, we'll hit record. So Lauren, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I want to actually talk about the paddling thing because, but I want to tag team on to a couple things. I also often, not always, but I'll often drive in silence too. I like that. Or sometimes I'll have like a podcast or something. I like someone talking, but music. If I'm listening to music, here's what happens. I'm like, I know this song is about 3 minutes. So when that ends, I'm 3 minutes further down on my trip. Especially if I'm doing a long trip, I'm like, okay, 3 minutes only has passed. And now another 3 minutes has passed. So for me, that is not helpful at all. I'd rather have silence where then I don't know how much time has passed. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I've been here for 3 hours. That's great. But if I have music, I'm like every 3 minutes, there's another 3 minutes passed of my road trip. So, I think we all have these propensities for what we can do and what our capacity is. But I think we also have a very limited capacity to just do one thing. I think we don't train ourselves to just do one thing. We feel like it's a waste of time. Why not check off 4 things on your list in the same amount of time? If you have to do a business meeting, you can do it put your ear pods in, do that while you're folding laundry. You've now done 2 things at the same time. But we also know from the science that multitasking is not a thing. We've thought for years, this is great, I'm going to do 6 things at once and get them all. But actually, you're only ever doing one thing at a time anyway. And so I notice this happening like when I sit down to read a book and there's something else going on in my head. I'll be reading and I'm like, I don't know, I just read a page. But my mind was like, you had that really difficult conversation. It did not go well. Is there any way that you could rewind that? Could you do it again? Should you go and talk to that person? Should you call them? Maybe just let it be. Maybe they don't even feel weird. I'm having that conversation even though I'm reading a book. You really can only do one thing at a time. And this then is yoga, right? That is yoga. Mm-hmm. That is learning how to do one thing and be really present in that. And when you are really present, the benefits, again, Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, I forget the guy's name who started the mindfulness practice that went really huge, but just mindfulness is a whole practice of can you just be very present with the one thing that you're doing. And so let's hear your paddleboard story, and then I'm going to share my hiking story, which now has a second part to it because I did it again today too.
Yeah. So I went paddleboarding for the first time of the season 2 days ago. And I planned, and I'll say here in Colorado where I live, it was the first nice day we'd had in a few weeks. We've just had a lot of rain, which is wonderful, but I've probably canceled 4 paddleboarding trips before that just because we couldn't do it because of rain. And so it was a really nice day. So I knew it would be a really busy day at the lake. That we me and my friend were not going to be the only 2 people who would think, oh, it's a wonderful Sunday. Let's go out to the lake. No one else is going to notice. And I hadn't been able to buy my annual pass for paddleboarding yet. And so I wanted, and she already had hers. And so I wanted to just get there a little early. And then for those of you who don't do watercraft, there is a, I don't know, plague. It's, I think it's like the New Zealand rainbow mussel or something. And there's another one, and they contaminate lakes and ruin them because they propagate as a species so fast. If one of them gets in the lake, then there's going to be a million of them in the lake. And then the lake is basically infested, and it's a massive problem. And so if you're taking in any kind of, I'll say, regulated lake, if it's just some pond and some back, whatever, obviously no one cares. But this particular lake is a water source for a town nearby. I've been in the Whitefish Lake, and it's the same thing. You have to have your watercraft. For me, my watercraft is a paddleboard. You have to take it to the station, and they have to inspect it, and they have to spray it down, and they have to do your paddle and your PFD and your board, and it's and check it off, and you get this little tag that it's been done. And so it creates a very long line of people who want to have this done. So I went a little bit early because I needed to go to the Special Nature Center and get my annual pass, and I had to inflate my inflatable paddleboard, and I figured all that would take a while. And so I actually got through all that right before the crowd hit. And so between when I got my board sprayed and when my friend showed up, I don't know, there were like 30 cars with maybe 3 to 4 people per car or something between me and her. And so I went on down to the water. I put my board in the water, and I hadn't been paddleboarding yet. And so I was like, I'll hop and like paddle around, and just, it was a very still day. So I wasn't, I wasn't too at risk, but you know, getting my sea legs back because it was the first time of the year. And then I just sat down on the board, and I mean, in the end, it took her about an hour to get to me. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I had no plans for the rest of the day. It was Sunday, 0 plans. I did have a to-do, plans where I had to meet somebody. Like I had no firm deadline of a plan. In my head, I had a to-do list of things I would like to do. So I sit down on my board, and I'm waiting for my friend, and I start to kind of go into a stress response. I'm like, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and she's not here yet. And now, you know, in my mind, I had a time I thought we were going to leave based on what time we were getting there. Now we're going to leave an hour later than when I thought we were going to leave, and I'm not going to get this done. I'm not going to get this done. And I was just spinning. And then I thought, Blaine, you want to be alone all the time. You see, like, whenever you're not alone and frustrated, you're like, I wish I could be alone. You're alone. You're floating. I mean, of course, other people are, but like, I'm alone. On me and my paddleboard are alone on a beautiful lake with the Rocky Mountains and the Flatirons right behind me on a beautiful, gorgeous spring day in the sun, which is where I love to be. I am a sun baby. I love the sun. Everything that I want is happening, and I am just missing it because in my head, I am inventing problems and getting myself all stressed out. And so what I did is what I always do when I am trying to come back to myself is I started to focus on my breath and, you know, make sure I'm breathing in and out through the nose really deeply, coming back into my body. And then so that was really turning my attention inward. Then I turned my attention outward and observed that there were two geese with their little babies. You know, like there's people walking everywhere. I guess they were very used to people just like cruising through. And there's a fish that went under my board. And we call it Bird Island. There's a whole buoyed off place because all these stunning birds go there, and they don't let watercraft get too close to that. And I just started like observing all of that. And I did truly calm myself down and get to enjoy the opportunity that I had. But that was not my default.
I love that. I love that. I mean, here it is. You're going to the place that you want to be, and as soon as you're there, you're annoyed. She's taking too long. Why didn't she get there early like you did? She should have known. All of those things, instead of what you finally got to, which was, what a gift. What a gift. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, I think so many of us do that. It's like, you spend all of your time and effort and energy to get to this incredible place. And as soon as you get there, you're like, oh, there's bugs or, or whatever it is, or I'm late, or, the mind takes you away, and then you're hijacked by the mind. And I had a very similar experience. I also, like you, love to be alone. I long for it. Like, when can I have the house to myself? What, just if I have a day where I've got like nothing on my calendar, that is like my absolute joy. And if I'm alone, so much the better. Like, that is my joy as well. And so I was hiking the other day, and I was like, oh my, I only have this amount of time. And as soon as I get back, there's going to be all these people at the house, and I don't want all these people at the house. And I wish I could be alone. And how can I maybe I need to like move, or, I just started like all going down this whole pathway. And I'm thinking, I finally stopped myself. And thankfully I was hiking a fairly steep slope. So I had to like really breathe, like, and focus on my breathing and the kind of breathing that I want to be doing. And I thought, well, look at that. Here you are alone, which is what you want, doing something that you love to do in a beautiful, magnificent place, and you are not here. And you are already so upset that you're not going to be alone later, that you've just sold out your now to later. And it was like just such a aha moment of just totally giving my own power away to the runaway mind. And so it's like all the people that were there later, they're already there with me now, instead of me just being in this presence of my own solitude and feeling that filling my well, so that later when I'm with a bunch of people, I'm not angry or feeling, annoyed or any of that. I can then be with them, which is also something I love to do. I love being with people. I love sharing experiences and conversation and all that. But because I was so annoyed in the moment that moment later was going to happen, that like I knew if I went there that I couldn't enjoy either of the moments. So I did something very similar to what you're saying, focus on the breath and then just be present. And I had an incredible, beautiful hike. And just this morning, I was doing the same thing. I was hiking a different beautiful hike, and my to-do list, my month coming up is so full. I'm yanking my own chain a little bit here, but this is what I'm thinking of. I have so much to do, and I start going, oh, I'll never be able to finish all this in time, and why did I take on all these projects? And then this other thing that's happening in the fall is going to make this month so much bigger because I've got to take care of this now. I'm thinking, why are you out here hiking then? You should just go back to your desk and do all of this work if that's what you have to do, because you're certainly not enjoying this, and then you're not going to enjoy that either. And I thought, okay, you made the choice. Why don't you be here now? And what I did differently from the other hike with focusing on the breath is thumping the K27s. So there are these points right under the collarbone. If you go to the little round bony tips and then you drop down just about an inch, you kind of sink into this hollow, and that's the end point of kidney meridian. And you've seen this on a million shows, sporting events. People are thumping their chests, but really the thing that we think about is Tarzan or the apes thumping their chests. And it's really about, it's about many things, but one of the things is about like, be here right now. Wake up to this moment. And I just started going, and I was doing it alternately, like right, left, because that also helps the hemispheres of the brain to integrate, which also helps you to be more coherent in your own energy field so that you can be more present. So I started doing that. For 15 seconds. It wasn't like I spent a lot of time. And then I just dropped right into the hike. And literally the next step, I saw all these baby huckleberries on the vine just starting. They're like pale white globes, and they look like they're wearing little dresses. Like, it was so beautiful right at my feet that I had just ignored. I'm sure I passed a million of them and didn't think twice, but now I was present. And here are these little huckleberries that at some point I'm going to come back and pick and eat and love. And they're the food for the bears and the food for the marmots. And it was just such a beautiful experience to then be on the hike that I chose to be on, to really be there and to get my well filled. And then I have that full well to go back and do all the work that I have to do. But I don't need to bring that work up onto my hike because I'm not doing it there anyway. And so it's sort of like, are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
I think we can do whatever we want.
Okay, because I was going to say, then you're like doing both of them half-assed. You're doing the hike, you're not there, and then when you're doing your work, you're like, you wish you were hiking. Oh, I so wish I could just go for a hike. But when you're on the hike, you're like, I should be back at my desk. This is the fluctuations of the mind stuff that is the practice of yoga to try to mitigate and bring yourself back into the present moment.
Yeah, and I think, back to the multitasking, I mean, there's an energetic lesson in this because our energy doesn't like it when we're doing that many things at once. And we can talk about eating because there's, in Ayurveda and in traditional Chinese medicine, there's a very strong teaching that when we eat, we need to just eat. Because I'll speak in the language of traditional Chinese medicine, because our spleen meridian and our stomach meridian need to be at full attention. And it affects our digestion. It affects our assimilation of nutrients. It's like the dominoes. It affects all these different things, including all of the meridians, which spleen and stomach are attached to, with all of them, because it's really one big, long river of energy. And so if we're driving and eating, then what's our energy doing? Is it trying to drive? Is it trying to pay attention to directions? Is it looking around us? Or is it chewing and digesting food? If we're reading and eating, if we're, and I think conversation is, it's not like we have to be a monk, right? But we don't want to have difficult, emotional conversations at the dinner table while we're eating. Like, we want to have friendly, loving, like we're in the spirit. It's like the hearth, the kitchen, and we're sharing a meal that someone has prepared, and we have gratitude for this meal, and we are sharing it in community. Like, that's the energy of eating with other people. Not you're having, big family discussions that are super intense at that time. You have those away from the dinner table. And I'm using this as, I don't know, a metaphor, or maybe metaphor is not the right word, but, I think if we're chopping the carrots and listening to the podcast and making 3 dishes and planning the podcast that we're going to do in an hour, all at the same time, we are weakening our energy in the same way. Do you think, Lauren?
I don't want to agree with you, because I love to read while I'm eating. That is one of the things that I love to do. And I know Ayurveda is like, bad, no, don't do it. And I'm like, please, Ayurveda, I really want to read while I'm eating. But you're totally right. Like, the energy of it is not, it is not in alignment, right? Because yes, you really can only do one thing at a time. And so if you're reading and you're eating, or you're driving and you're eating, that's another one for so many reasons, because that's introducing the vata element into the kapha of eating. Your vata, your driving, your movement, so you're bringing in movement, and that can lead to all kinds of disruptions in the digestive, all of it. Yes, you are right. I don't want to agree, but it's true. And so, can we take a little? I'm going to take a sideways turn in this podcast. I'm going to put you on the spot. Sorry, but I'm going to do it. So what would you say? Because I know you do a lot of food coaching. You've just you've done a ton of nutrition courses, but I know you've just done a food energetics course. And so what would you say to somebody like me? Oh, I don't want to even say, because you're going to say it on the radio, and then I'm going to have to I'm not going to do it anyway. What do you say with someone like that? I know that it's not good, and I'm going to do it anyway. Like, what do you do with that?
I mean, when you're coaching somebody, it's not about making them do something that they don't want to do, right? You educate them to the cost, right? And there's a benefit, right? So obviously you feel a benefit to doing that. And so, like, here's the benefit. There's a give, there's a take. There's a give, there's a take. You inform, we're all adults, and allow them to make the decision that they want. But I think coming back to the earlier conversation, it's become our comfort zone, and I think it has a cost. All of this optimizing and multitasking and all of that becomes our normal. And so when we go to do just one thing, it feels uncomfortable, just like changing any habit always feels uncomfortable. What the habit is, even if it's bad for us, feels comfortable. Changing it feels uncomfortable for a while. But I think it's detrimental. And I multitask all the time. And so Lauren, this isn't about you at all, because I have plenty of ways in which I multitask. And I do, especially because in food energetics, which is all about traditional Chinese medicine and 5-element theory and the meridians, and like diving deep into the energetics of the food and what's happening in the body, it has made me exquisitely aware of the importance of enjoying the food and just enjoying the food and fully chewing. And because you do get more nutrients, you do digest better. I mean, it's just overall. And so that, while that used to feel uncomfortable to me, now feels very comfortable because I have been practicing it. But I think all the ways in which we're trying to optimize is at a cost. And if we can start to be more focused and be here now, we will enjoy our lives better. And the research shows that time can feel like it's slowing down. And for those of us who are like, time is going so fast and I'm missing out in my life, and where did another month go, or where did another year go? If we'd stop all the optimizing and really be super present, doing one thing at a time, I think that we would feel like we're not missing out on life so much.
I think that is an incredible point to bring up. And to piggyback onto that is, the zone has gotten a lot of traction, over the last few years. Getting into the zone. How do you get into the zone? What is the zone? The zone is one-pointed focus. And people spend so much time and energy trying to get into the zone. And you can do it in some very extreme ways, right? Like extreme sports they talk about, or just sports in general, are ways to get into the zone. If you are, for example, I downhill ski. I am not one of those skiers. I do not listen to music. I don't listen to a podcast. I am like so focused because you could die. I am so well aware at every turn I could fall, I could break a leg, I could die. And so I am exquisitely focused. And so there are a lot of extreme sports, and people do extreme sports for the adrenaline rush, but part of the adrenaline rush is actually that one-pointed focus. And even if you're not in extreme sports, so many athletes talk about getting into the zone where time stands still, where it's like it takes you so long to get that basketball up into the basket. It's like you can see everyone on the court and how they're moving, or you're running a race and it's like fluid and you see everything crystal clear. And so people long for that experience. Musicians often get into that. They talk about getting into the zone when you're making love, that you're in that one-pointed moment. You're not, if you're making love and you're thinking about your to-do list, you might want to, kind of rethink a few things going on there, right? So, and that idea that time stands still, I remember I was just recently in Maine on one of my favorite beaches on the planet, and I was very present because I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to be. And I was face down in the sand, which is sounds maybe not fun for some people, but this is and just the wind was blowing, and the sand is really light, and the wind was blowing the sand all over. And then just this one little square foot that I was watching, each little grain of sand was making this journey across this. I could have watched it for hours. I probably did watch it for hours. Nothing else was going on. And it was one of the most, I'm still talking about it, looking at some sand blowing around on the beach. It was one of the most joyful, present experiences. And that day seemed very long and very spacious. I wasn't like, oh, where, like the time flew. Time was spacious. Time was just time. And it didn't have this other quality of I'm running out of time, or I don't have enough time, or my vacation's almost over. It was just this day was long and luscious and delicious. And I think that we can find that. Back to your point of the multitasking, we do feel comfortable in that busyness. I mean, we give ourselves kudos for how busy we are, but I do think that we are losing out on that presence, and you can feel it really culturally taking over when you're with people and they're scrolling on their phones. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been out to dinner, maybe even just with one other person, let alone a table of 5 people. But you're sitting across one other person and they pick up their phone and you're just like, hello? Oh, I just have to check something real quick. I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, what? Or you see people with their children and they're scrolling their phones. Now, we know the phone thing, and that's a whole other podcast. But just to not have that presence and to not be able to receive that presence from someone else. I remember years ago reading this article that is the currency of the day, is your attention. And we've given our attention away to our incessant scrolling, to this idea that, we're so busy and it's so valuable and so necessary and all of that. But if you can give somebody your presence, your attention, it is the biggest gift. And you can really feel it. Like, you can feel it when you're receiving it, when someone's really paying attention to you and you feel that. I mean, that's literally one of the stages of development for a child, is to get your full attention. And a child gets their nurturance and becomes their a healthy self when they have your full attention. And so I know we've kind of been throwing all of these things out here in our quest to find presence, because there's just a lot going on in the world today, and it's not so easy. And I think we can take a little succor from the idea that maybe it never has been easy, right? Which is why 5,000 years ago, Patanjali wrote this down and was like, hey, everybody, dudes and dudettes, here it is. Here's yoga right now. And everyone's like, what? Stop thinking about all these other things. Just be present. What? And 5,000 years later, we're still working on it. But it's necessary and it's valuable. And like what you said, that it really makes your life richer to be present for each thing instead of trying to do everything at the same time.
Yeah, and yes, I mean, when in meditation training, they'll teach you that, or at least I've been taught that in meditation. Like, even the guru in the Himalayas in the cave meditating has the same mind stuff that we have in 2025 in the United States. We all, it's the human condition. It's the human condition. And back to what you said, and I think this is what you meant, Lauren, when I trained in India with Anand at Sattva in 2018, I have it written down many times in my notes that our greatest currency is our attention. He would say that quite a bit. But yes, our attention to another human or pet or whatever it's in front of us, but also our attention on ourselves. It's not just, our attention on our meal, our intention on the book we're reading, our attention on the podcast, whatever we have chosen to do in that moment, the attention there, but maybe most importantly, the focus and attention that we give on ourselves. Because when we're focused on the meal, it's for us. Like, we're eating this, we're sitting down and taking time out of our day to nourish ourselves, or be in community with somebody else, or be in the shower cleaning our hair, or be scrubbing our bathroom floor. We're doing that for us. So we have a clean house. We have a safe place. We have a bathroom we enjoy walking into. And so it's really thinking about it, yes, for others, but for ourselves too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So, would really love to hear from you if you struggle with being present. If you don't struggle with being present, then we really want to hear from you. How have you gotten away from what everyone else is falling into? And maybe try some of the two tools that we offered today. So the first one is really just focusing on your breath, bringing your focus back to your breath. And that can just be as simple as a long, slow inhale through the nose, a longer, slower exhale out the mouth. We know the breath does so many things. It calms the stress response. It regulates the nervous system. It re-regulates the vagus nerve. Doing that longer exhale regulates the vagus nerve. And it allows you to come back to the present, because the breath is the most present thing that's happening right now. You are breathing right now. This breath in, this breath out. It's not 3 breaths ago you're breathing. You're not breathing 3 breaths from now. You're only breathing 1 breath in, 1 breath out. And so it's the perfect lived metaphor, if that's a thing, of bringing yourself back into the present moment if you feel like the mind has wandered. And the other thing to try is that bilateral tapping on those K27 points to help the physical body re-entrain to the mind, or reverse, the mind re-entrain to the body to bring yourself back into this moment now. So maybe try one or both of those the next time that you find yourself in some beautiful place or with some incredible people or in an incredible experience, and you're not present and experiencing it. And you notice, I'm not even here. Take a moment, take a breath, thump the K27 points, bring yourself back into the moment, and see how you enjoy being exactly where you are.
Beautiful, Lauren. I think that is a wrap for today. Like Lauren said, we'd love to hear your comments, and we will see you next time on Energy Works.
Bye, everybody.